This is the High School Crossfire. Welcome back.
Good evening, the House at large, to antagonistic bodies and the panel of judges. I am Tehri Mirza, a student of Kyambogo College, representing the affirmative speaker third. So first of all, the team negators come and ask us, wasn't there another way without bombing Japan? Was it morally right? First of all, I would like to take them back to the history. Japan was being a very stubborn kid, and America told it to behave, and it refused to behave. Actually, it attacked America's secret base. That's when it attacked America's secret base, even after America telling it to chill or stop and even putting sanctions, it still attacked America's secret base, which hyped America and said, we will invade Japan one by one. But after invading only one island of Japan, they realized that the cost of life is too big. So instead of invading the whole of Japan, they will only destroy 2 districts, 2 cities, to save the whole world from the impact of this world war, which means 80,000 people who were killed are better than the world, and 32 people dying today. They come and tell us that the rate of people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki are still dying today. But I would like to tell them, if a desired result is important enough, the methods used to obtain the results does not matter. And that brings back to our parameter. Our parameter says that the means might be immorally wrong, but the end rejected. But the end is morally right and universally accepted. That's what brings us to our clash point. They come and tell us ADF bombed people to achieve changes. But was this bombing and this change of government a universal decision? Which again brings us to our rejected, which again brings us to our parameter. Was it a universal decision? ADF did something on it, and would it benefit the universal as a whole world? No. So it means ADF was a wrong terrorist right now. Should we continue? Should ADF continue bombing us just because it wants to change the government, which universally does not benefit anyone? And that's our parameter. We do what's wrong, but as long as whatever mean we use, it might be wrong, but the end is benefiting everyone in the world and majority of the people. That's what happened in Japan. 80,000 people were better good dead than 32 million in these people dying. Team negators do not understand that this is a debate which talks about what's better, and a wrong mean can lead us to a good end. Second, they come and tell us, I said rejected, they come and tell us that if your father steals and brings you, he's doing the right thing. But I would like to ask you, if your father has hands, if your father has legs, what's the use of stealing? Can't your father go and work? There are labor sectors. Okay, let's take he's not educated, but can't he work in the labor sector? Okay, leave labor. Can't he beg? What's the use of stealing? And how does it benefit universally to everyone? What's the use? We do a wrong thing when there's no choice. For example, in Japan, discussions were made, sanctions were made, and no choice was left. That's when this decision was taking place. That same happens with French Revolution. King Louis was a very pride noble who used to think everything in France is his. Because of killing King Louis and his wife, today we have democracy in this country, in this world basically. Democracy was brought from French Revolution. Tell me, is democracy better than killing those 2 king and queens? No, democracy was way better. So we chose a right decision, but with wrong means. But the end is morally very right. We also come and tell them of coronavirus, the pandemic. In pandemic there were economic crisis, but it supported the country. Okay, there were economic crisis, but you are living. How many people died and we controlled it just because you put the SPOs? Yeah, the economy was questioned, but the outcome was better. The outcome was very better. The same happened with the anti-gay bill. The anti-gay bill came in Uganda, and okay, people rioted, people's rights were violating, but what rights were violating? Those are rights that are not accepted in your religion, and they are not accepted morally in a country of Uganda, which means Uganda did the best. First of all, Uganda might find its dependency syndrome by it. Uganda might be able to work on its own since the 2/3 of the nation's budget is taken. So this was a benefit. Maybe the means were wrong, but let us tell the team negators that whatever we are doing has a proper beneficial outcome for universal, not for your father or your child who steals just because he can't work. No, we are doing something when everything has failed. Like in Japan, everything failed. They should go back and go to history. They even came and told us, time up. So basically, as team affirmatives, we believe that this debate is a comparative analysis and ends which are good, the means do not matter. Thank you.
The panel, the 2 antagonistic bodies, and the August House at large. My name is Onen Henry, and I'm the 3rd negator. The end justifies the means. Dear panel, the points of clash in today's debate. Team affirmative come up and they tell us, I want to quote their first speaker. They told us that the end justifies the means. It means that to achieve something which is morally good, it wouldn't mind to achieve something that they want. It wouldn't mind the means that they used to get there, even though it involved killing someone. That is what the first affirmative said when he was going to sit down. And he gave an example of spare the rod and spoil the child. And then he went ahead and he said that, how many of you in the audience have been punished by a kick, a slap? But dear partner, let me broaden his perspective a bit. Look at this situation whereby a father wants to teach his child something, and then this very father goes to the extreme. The father wants to teach the child maybe the child stole something and the father is punishing the child, and the father goes to an extra mile of banning the child, like we see. A father goes to an extra mile of stabbing the child. So dear partner, what does this mean? That actually what they're trying to front for us is not okay. The end justifies the means is not okay. We as Team Affirmative, we come up and we tell you that this is a moral hazard. However much you come and tell us that the USA bombing Japan was actually a good initiative because they saved 32 million people. But this was just hypothetical. These people were just hypothesized to die, dear panelists and gentlemen. And the 80,000 people who died in Japan. And mind you, I want to educate you, dear farmers, before I take your POI, that the 80,000 people who died, the bombing is actually a war crime, and it's punishable, dear panel. So war crimes and these actions whereby you go ahead and you bomb. And I want to tell you more about what happened in Libya during Gaddafi's regime. Libya, granted, you're wasting my time, I continue. The Libyan civil war and NATO International 2011, you find that Libya actually had a civil war and the NATO intervened. And you find that they launched airstrikes. The USA launched airstrikes in Libya in an intervention to stop this war. And dear panel, what happened in Libya up to now? The aftermath of this action has left Libya in turmoil and political chaos ever since 2011. We come back to basic examples in society. Granted.
Now, do you believe in the saying that says, spare a rod, spoil the child?
Now you're not paying attention to whatever I'm telling you. Spare the rod and spoil the child is an extreme thing. Look at a situation whereby a father bans a child. Is that actually catered for in your policy? Do you look at a situation whereby a father goes ahead and beats the mother, beats the wife because the wife has not cooked food? Dear panel, look at that situation. That's what they fail to understand and what they fail to address. Dear panel, I want to ask the third affirmative. What are SPOs, as she said? What we know is our SOPs, but not SCPOs. And they came ahead and they gave an example of the quarantine that was imposed by Uganda during the lockdown. So dear panel, the quarantine was actually imposed by everybody. This was a world initiative. And there's nothing which was bad by the quarantine, dear panel, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to continue. Our alternative, we have an ethical alternative. Wherever there is a war, before a war happens, there's always an alternative. For example, USA and North Korea. You heard about that war. There was almost a war between USA and North Korea. But how did the war happen? Because they sat together and they discussed, and that's why the war did actually happen. But now, in such situations, we have a situation whereby all of us can sit down and we discuss the ethical alternative rather than the unethical alternative, which actually violates human rights as stated by our first speakers, as it actually leads to unintended consequences. For example, it can justify a person in committing wrong acts. It can justify a person committing wrong acts. For example, a corrupt official stealing money from the public with aim of satisfying his own needs. He wants to provide food for his family, but he doesn't have the money, and he goes ahead and steals the money. So what does this show? He's actually providing for his family. This actually works under the principle of the end justifies the mean. That means that you are going to provide for your family, but the way you get the money is actually a bad way. So dear panel, team negative, front for way, the ethical ways, because there's always an ethical advantage. I beg to rest my case, saying the end justifies the mean is actually a biased quote and is a quote that is going to lead to the destruction of humanity. I rest my case.
This is the High School Crossfire. We'll be back in a minute.